Beautiful day, Patriots. How are you? We're going to look at some old buildings, and we're going to look at insane asylums. I was telling you to take a look at these and see what you think about insane asylums. Here's a picture of an old insane asylum. It's not a picture, it's a drawing, but look at the size of it. Look at the size of this insane asylum. And if they were going to build a building this big and house people in it, would you not think that they would study the human mind and the behaviors of these people? Or are these things just prisons? Like if somebody's insane and nobody understands them, you just throw them in a locked cage and then walk away? And that's why they needed so many rooms? Again, why is there such a huge, large building? And we're going to go through and look at them from all around the world. But just an interesting fact that I'm starting to notice is that insane asylums happen to be real prevalent right during resets. America's Constitution and its freedom was given to it in 1776. That's our history story. The first insane asylum in America was 3 years earlier in Virginia. In 1773 was the first insane asylum in America. That's kind of interesting. That, again, at the time of hospitals that are bloodletting and amputating and have no clue of how anything works, they sure do have a big interest in mental health, and then locking up people that can't function normally in society. So again, we go and look at these buildings. Now, this is an insane asylum. This is no different than any kind of these big, huge, gigantic government buildings or a cathedral. I could put the word cathedral under this, and you would believe that is a cathedral and not an insane asylum. This is here. This is inside the world's oldest mental asylum. I don't know what it is, but again, is that this? They're saying that this is a mental hospital, an insane asylum. If you're crazy, this is where they put the crazy people. But again, I could sit there and tell you that this was instead of an insane asylum, I could tell you that it was a castle or royalty or a government official building or a cathedral. Look at the size of these. Under the dome. Rethinking Madness. Under the dome. This is how a mental hospital in 1911. Now again, we say under the dome. This is a mental hospital, but I could put royalty, government building. I could even put the White House right there. Is this normal behavior to have insane asylums like this? Blackwell Island, Roosevelt Island, New York City. What does that say? A Carey Hospital? Look at the size of that hospital. Again, does this look like a hospital from the early 1800s? Or does this look more like what they say looks like a English chateau or a French chateau or a palace, a royal palace? Nope, you're wrong. It's an insane asylum. Oh man, just got the domes on them just like everything else. You know what was funny though? I did find, again, I keep talking about these smokestacks and we don't see smokestacks. Here's an insane asylum in Columbia University. Looks like an incredibly large building, larger, and they've got smokestacks burning. They finally got smokestacks, smoke coming out of chimneys, but it happens to be in an insane asylum. That's kind of crazy. So now these are also during the 1800s, right before the Revolutionary War. These are right before the Revolutionary War. And if you think about the the Civil War, I meant to say the Civil War. This is right before the Civil War of mental hospitals. These pictures right here, okay? Now, think about what's happening. These are the size of the buildings at the time of the Civil War. And during the Civil War, people were living as poor rats in the fields. Poor rats in the fields. Not talking about slaves in the fields. I'm talking just about other people all over the place. But there was other groups of people that were living in these incredibly huge, large buildings.
The Oregon Wagon Trail happened during this time.
During the Civil War, there was a great big huge
reset. And these buildings are around
here.
These
buildings got destroyed.
Insane asylums? I'd be running
we all went back down to sticks and stones to break our bones. Look at this building here. A hospital for the insane. I could tell you that's the Army of Engineers Red Castle, and you would believe me. I could tell you that that is a castle from someplace else. I could tell you that is a prison. You don't think those other things on top of this? Why do they need an asylum so large? For the insane. Look at this. Here's trees to kind of give us a perspective. Look how large these asylum. I'm not saying they are. They are saying they are. Look at the size of this. I'm not saying this is in America. I'm jumping all over the place just to give you a sight. Again, how come only the smokestacks I see of these buildings are coming out of insane asylums? You know, the Red Castle, again, it's a different building. The Illinois State Mental Hospital. Look at the people. Look at the size of this building. For mentally challenged people. Resets. You think that these are just, again, if you've got a building this completely large, dedicated for the mind of mentally ill, they're not studying mentally ill, they're not studying mind control, they're not studying brainwashing. And then again, it says the state mental hospital. Who owns this? They say Illinois State, but then there's always just people that run it that can never be charged for what really happens in there. They're just guards. The people that say that are running it, they're just guards so no one else can come inside. Seacliff Mental Hospital. Look at the size of this. This is a mental hospital, about 1910. I could tell you that this was a castle from Europe, but you'd be wrong. This is a building that was in America 110 years ago, where we kept insane people that couldn't cope with society, that couldn't cope with what the society said. Now, I'm not saying those people weren't insane, but all it takes is if you don't agree with society, you are insane. And they've dedicated these type of buildings to insane asylums. Again, I could tell you that this is Napa, California. I could tell you this is a castle from Europe. I could tell you that this is a cathedral from any place all over the world. But you would be wrong. This is a mental institute building for people that have mental challenges and they can't cope in society in California 110 years ago. They built buildings like this for the mentally handicapped that couldn't cope with society. I'm sure these are just coincidences. An insane asylum.
They're slaughterhouses.
Anyways,
they are slaughterhouses.
Are you going insane yet?
Just
Oh, I
like the
forgot to ask you,
cathedrals.
are you voting Republican or Democrat coming up? What seems super important in your life? Voting Republican or